problems that I have with, I mean, for example, all the talk about Trump tyrant, Trump executive power. I mean, Joe Biden has used executive power in ways that far outstrip
Every
anything that
president has been stretching executive power.
I mean,
That's
Joe Biden is going like Joe Biden has gone well beyond anything Trump even remotely attempted to maintain via just pure executive power. And actually, Trump's use of executive power is nowhere near even what Obama's was.
I mean,
Obama
Trump's inability to get border policy passed literally had him using executive power to march the military down to the border to do border policy. I mean,
Joe Biden literally used the Occupational Safety and Hazard Administration to try to cram down vax mandates on 80 million Americans. That's insane.
Sure,
he
but
literally
why-
said,
but why
I cannot
give-
relieve student loan debt, and then tried to relieve hundreds of billions of dollars in
yeah,
student
but what
loan
happened
debts.
to that?
It got struck down by the Supreme Court, and then they still did it. They still did it. Biden brags about it.
For
having relieved
what he was
billions.
able to relieve, which I think were related to particular types of student loan debt. But I'm just saying that, like, well, the guardrails are holding with Biden as much as they're holding with Trump. The only difference is that once Biden exhausts his executive power, he's not running around like lying to people or trying to extort people or trying to and concoct insane schemes.
Well, I mean, so here's the way I would think of this. Think of the guardrails holding as the filter.
Sure.
Okay, meaning like the coffee is in the filter. Some of it's what you want is going to get through, and all the stuff. The guardrails prevent the other stuff from getting through.
Mhm.
Now the question becomes, what liquid are you pouring into the filter? Okay, meaning so if the filter exists, if the guardrails hold, and if Donald Trump can't steal elections, what's the policy that comes through the other end of the filter? The policy I get from Donald Trump on the other end of the filter is a bunch of stuff that I like. The policy that I get from Joe Biden on the other end of the filter is a bunch of bullshit I don't. So that's the basic calculation.
What's going on, everyone? Sauce here today, and we're going to be reacting to the debate between Ben Shapiro and Destiny. This is a debate that's been a long time coming. A lot of people wanted these two to debate for a long time. I think Graham Stephan, just a lot of people on the internet. Or everyone's always talking about, Destiny will wreck Ben Shapiro and all this stuff. But I haven't gotten the privilege to watch the full thing. I went in like an hour. I watched about an hour because I was busy with shooting videos and stuff. But I'll come to the rest of it eventually, but I want to share some clips with you guys, and hopefully you guys find this video informative.
Let's talk about divisiveness for a second. So there's no one who can make the case that Donald Trump is not divisive.
Yeah.
Of course, he's incredibly divisive. It's a given. Do you treat Biden's rhetoric with the same level of seriousness that you treat Trump's rhetoric? Or I should probably put that the other way around. Should we treat Trump's rhetoric with the same level of seriousness as Joe Biden or, say, Barack Obama's rhetoric?
I'm going to try to be concise when I say these. Broadly speaking, especially in studying Israel, Palestine, and Ukraine, Russia, I try not to take politicians at their word because sometimes they just say stuff to say stuff. I understand that. But broadly speaking, I'm going to look at the rhetoric and the actions, and I am going to grade them the same. So, yes, I would hold Biden and Trump to the same standard.
Right. So my feeling is, and this is one area where, for clarification, we're going to have a division, is that I, of course, don't treat Trump's rhetoric in the same way that I treat Biden's or Obama's. He's utterly uncalibrated, and he says whatever he wants to at any given time, and it doesn't even match up with his policy very often.
Can I ask you, like, for our head of state, our chief executive, shouldn't rhetoric be arguably one of the most important things that he does?
I mean, the answer would be yes, and now I've been given a choice between a person who...
So one question I want to highlight, is that you see how he's so concerned about, head of state, your rhetoric matters. Okay, let's put that criteria on Biden. Is demonizing half the country, calling them half the country extremists, calling over 70 million people who voted for Donald Trump extremists? Is that a good rhetoric to be pushing on society? Calling Republicans a threat to democracy, is that a rhetoric that's not like? If the liberals give you the criteria and you use that same criteria to judge their candidate, it's always but when it comes out of the liberal's mouth. Right, but I digress. That's just a little 2 cents I want to add into the conversation.
Who I think in calibrated ways says things that are divisive, and a person who in uncalibrated ways says things that are divisive. And so the evidence that Joe Biden is divisive is every poll taken since essentially August of 2021. He is, by all available metrics, incredibly divisive. A huge percentage of Americans are deeply unhappy, not only with his performance, but don't believe he's a uniter. That's just the reality. And that may just be a reflection. I mean, honestly, we may be putting too much on Trump or Biden personally. It may just be that the American people themselves are rhetorically divided because of social media, and social media can, in fact, be a cesspool. And
yes, I agree. So I just wanted to end off with that point because, I have other clips that I want to get to, but I'll wrap up with this. The data do show that people saw Biden. It was one of Biden's speeches, and I think I did a video on it, and I got a lot of flack in the comment section. Like, and this is my problem with like Democratic voters, is that when you have a valid critique of Biden and you bring up stats of how most Americans saw Biden's speech as divisive, they want to make excuses. Oh, look, but what about Trump? Well, Trump's not president, right? We're judging the head of state and his rhetoric, right? And it always seems like, the Democratic voters are ready to play defense for their guy. Now, for conservative voters, yeah, we do the same thing, but we can admit, yeah, he did do it, but it ain't that bad. They say, no, mega Republicans, this is the fault of the mega Republicans. He's just calling it how he sees it, Kenny. Yeah, but I'm saying he's seeing it in a biased liberal way. But I digress, guys. Let me know your thoughts about that and about this segment. So we're moving on to education. Here's a short clip about like a little bit of what we're getting into, and then I'll try to react to the full video. Let's take a look.
We're going to college, we're better qualified for particular jobs because on average, not all the time, but on average, a lot of those people were smarter and making more money because of that. And so all you've done is you've now created these additional layers of stratification. So a person who used to be able to get a job with a college degree now has to have a postdoc degree in order to go get that degree. A person who used to be able to just graduate high school, now it's de facto, you got to go to JUCO and then you got to go to college, or nobody's even going to look at your resume. It's really, really terrible for people who can't afford all of that. It's led to this massive increase in educational cost that is inexplicable, other than this particular sort of bleed up. And by the way, federal subsidies for higher education. Again, one of my problems with federal subsidies for higher education, I'd love for everyone to be able to go to college if qualified to do so and if it is productive. But one of the things I did when I went to law school is I took loans because a bank said I was going to get my money back if I got a law degree from Harvard. But when you're not going to get your money back, if you're a bank, you're not going to lend to some dude who wants to major in, art theory, because is that a good bet? There's no collateral, right? If I give a loan for a house, I can go repossess the house. How do I repossess your garbage college degree from UCLA? There's no way to do that. So, this is the broader conversation about education in general. I think the educational system is cruising for a bruising. And I think all that's necessary for it to completely collapse on the non-STEM side where you actually learn things is for people who employ to simply say, give me your SAT score and I will hire you for an apprenticeship directly out of high school. That it would cut out so much of the middleman. But as far as the general point that you're making about institutions, I may disagree on the education and how far it's gone. In general, I agree with you. So it's in general, I agree. And I get to use my favorite longest word in the English language here. I would consider myself in many cases an anti-disestablishmentarianist.
Nice.
Right? You see, I like to drop that. That's it, because if you're an establishmentarian, that means you like
In
the
opposition to the
disestablishmentarianism. Right. So I'm an anti. So
Can you say that word, Dustin?
That's the one we all learned growing up. Anti-disestablishmentarianism is
There
the
you go.
longest word in a
So- and
dictionary.
so
We've all-
So yeah, but now they're going to dive into education. As you saw, they kind of got into it with the college degree, and I think Destiny. Remember, you got to watch the whole video to get more proper context. I'm just reacting to clips that I found insightful from the time I did watch the video. And Destiny was arguing about how, shouldn't we, invest taxpayer money to make education better? And not Biden, Ben was trying to highlight to Destiny that, hey, like, it doesn't matter how good you make the environment if what you put in it is rotting it, right? So, Ben was alluding to family values, culture, right? Because it doesn't matter what you do with the system. If the kids not or grew up in a culture where education not really respected, you're doing all this for nothing. Look at the teachers that want to drop out of school. Like, teachers don't even want to teach anymore because millennial parents are raising their kids to be terrors on a prairie, and they don't like discipline, they don't like authority, they don't listen, they don't follow direction. So it doesn't matter how good you make the education system if the parents are not respecting or valuing education, and they don't have the proper values to pass on to their children to make them respect authority and guidance.
the point is that I don't disagree that there is a general populist tendency on all sides of the aisle to look at the institutions and then throw them overboard. I think that some of that is earned by people who are in positions of power at institutions who have completely undermined the faith and credibility of those institutions. I think that you have to examine institution by institutions, which ones are salvageable and which ones are not. So I'm not a full anti-disestablishmentarianism. I'd be partially in that camp. There are certain institutions like higher education in the liberal arts that I think we may be better off without. And then there are certain institutions like, say, participation in American government, where when people talk about we need a revolution, I'm like, no, we don't. That's not a thing. We need an evolution. We need change. We can use the system. And but I think you have to you have to look at it industry by industry,
Just curious.
institution by institution.
On that position on institutions, do you think Biden or Trump would side with you more?
As far as the institutions,
Yeah.
I think the institutions in the United States at the governmental level are robust. I think the social institutions are failing.
Yeah, but I'm just curious on your general view of institutions. Do you think Biden or Trump would side with you more on how you view them?
I mean, I think that in rhetoric, Biden would, and then I think that he would tear out the face of the institution and wear it around like a mask, like Hannibal Lecter. I mean, that's
Even
my
though he
actual.
resisted some people's calls to like pack the court and
Yes, because I think that his use of executive power was greater than that of Donald Trump. The power that he had, he used to greater effect than Donald Trump. Donald Trump, again, thrashed up against the sides of the box, but could not get out of it.
okay. For just on a real quick, because on the that answer went a lot farther than the initial question.
Yeah.
But yeah, just on the real quick thing, the reason why my main problem that I feel like we have today in society is people are getting into their own bubbles. The idea of having like conservative schools and liberal schools seems like the saddest thing in the world to me.
I was on mute. Well, that's a problem that I believe liberals created, right? And I did I have a stat. Maybe I'll plug it here if I can find it when I'm editing this video. But there's a stat that liberals are less open-minded about ideals than conservatives are. Democrats are more likely to block conservatives. Even the men. The men are more likely to block people who with opposite opinions than conservative women. Like it speaks for itself. So when you get the data, when you get the information, the people who pretend that we should just be bipartisan, they're covertly or passively the most partisan. If you ask a liberal, hey, are you friends with a conservative? Oh no, but I know plenty of conservatives that are friends with liberals, right? Liberals are quick to dismiss somebody because they're conservative, dismiss information because it came from Fox News. You never hear a conservative say that about MSNBC. I always mispronounce that name. CNN, NBC. We never do none of that. We just go, that's inaccurate information. Here's why. Liberals go, they hear something. Oh, you probably got that from Fox News as a means of discrediting you. Liberals are the reason why. And I think conservatives are just reacting to it. Okay, fine. We're done with the bipartisanship. Let's stay over here. Let's stay in our own lane because we want to be where we're wanted, not tolerated. And that's the kind of projection that a lot of liberals are giving conservatives. And that's how I personally feel about a lot of liberals, that they only tolerate you. They don't appreciate you. And I think conservatives are done feeling that way. And I think this is one of the reasons why conservatives want to homeschool their children, right? It's a silent revolution that the conservatives are doing. And if the liberals keep it up, hey, it's all right to do that. And most kids come from conservative households anyway. Conservatives have more kids than liberals by like one and a half more children than liberals. So, and eventually, if conservatives keep this pathway they're going up, liberals will be completely iced out of the influencing the future generations of Americans. And I think that's a risk to your ideology, liberals. And if you want to continue doing that, it's time you try to make peace with the conservatives. That's all I'm trying to say. But let's continue.
Like, I would want conservatives and liberals going to school together because I think these people need to interact with each other more, if for no other reason than to see that the other person is not like an actual monstrous, horrible entity that wants to destroy the country.
Listen, I think a classically liberal idea for many schools would not be a bad thing. I think it would be a good thing.
Yeah.
I just wonder if that's salvageable. And if it's not salvageable, then the answer to that is to actually create alternative institutions.
I feel like the biggest issue that we have is people they sort into these different like phantom worlds to where even if you live in the same city, there are totally different worlds that exist between liberals and conservatives. And I feel like one of the big barriers to people understanding the other side sometimes it's just a little bit of information or a little bit of like firsthand experience. So in terms of information, I'm sure you saw, I don't know if this is a full-on study, but they were talking about how some huge percentage of students would change their mind on From the River to the Sea when you told them what From the River to the Sea
what the
actually
river
meant,
was and what the
right?
sea was.
Yeah. Or when you said like, what does a one-state solution mean? A lot of them like such that the numbers went from like.
So you get the gist of that point that Destiny's trying to make is that, we should just come together more. If instead of having this theoretical, like this imagination of what the opposition is, actually deal with the opposition, actually go out and meet people like that in person. Problem is, liberals, Democrats are not willing to do that with conservatives, and conservatives are willing to do that. And all I'm saying is, it's just a one-way relationship. Conservatives are always seeking to be near liberals, but liberals don't want to be near conservatives. Eventually, conservatives are going to be tired and be like, okay, fine, we'll just do our own thing over there. And then the liberals are going to pretend, oh, look, the conservatives are just trying to being divisive. The conservatives are trying to create echo chambers. No, you're pushing us off platforms. If Twitter was never bought by Elon Musk, you'll be censoring us, banning us. You don't want to be exposed to our ideas. So why we want to keep trying to extend the olive branch? Eventually, we're going to stop. And that's what's happening right now, right? And to pretend that, it's a both sides thing. No, it's a one side thing. And it's Democrats, it's liberals, it's people on the left. because secretly you guys are passively authoritarians. That's just my thoughts. Maybe you'll disagree with me in the comment section. So the final clip of today will be Ben and Destiny debating about sex and sexuality and our gaudy culture, whatever you want to call it. Let's take a look at a short clip, and then I'll react to some clips. Let's take a look.
Well, we could talk about religion, but that's not rapid fire at all. Let me ask, this is from the internet. Does body count matter?
Jesus Christ. You're really bringing up the red pill stuff.
Are you avoiding answering?
I mean, it depends on who you are.
Oh,
if you're somebody that
depends.
doesn't care about it, it doesn't. If you're somebody that does care about it, yeah, it does, of course. Depends on the...
The answer is yes.
Okay. Should porn be banned?
No.
If you could do it, yes. There's no benefit to pornography. It's a waste of time and destructive to the human soul.
I can't believe I'm asking this question. Is OnlyFans empowering or destructive for women?
Jesus. These are rapid fire?
Yeah, just you can't.
I mean, it's probably empowering for the ones that are making a lot of money off it. It probably feels disempowering for others that feel affected by the cultural norms set by women that do OnlyFans. There's my rapid fire answer.
No, it's destructive to even the ones who are making a lot of money, because when you degrade yourself to being just a set of human body characteristics that other people jack off to, it's bad for you and it's bad for them.
Yeah. So now they get into this is a fun one. I think it'll just kind of, break away from all the serious stuff. But I think this is a big part of our culture right now. OnlyFans is the trendy thing. Like, it seems like every woman on social media, no, every woman, sorry, I lied. But there's a big push for a lot of women to embrace sex work, to not feel shame for sex work. And I think it's degrading for our culture, honestly. And I think it also hurts women more than it hurts men, right? In a way, I also have this idea that the reason why we don't have a lot of smart men and all this stuff is because there's no longer an incentive for men to be great or to do great things, is because sex is so accessible now, right? Men don't have to, like in the older days, when the time of Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, men had to be something to marry a woman, right? And women were pretty good at not giving sex away to men of low status. We're all caught up in this consumer culture that we live in today, where we're commodifying sexuality. And I think that's the biggest reason why Ben's saying, hey, it's a waste of time, right? Just like masturbation. You ain't gonna produce a child out of masturbation. This is why Christians think masturbation is wrong, because you're wasting energy. That energy you using masturbating, you could have been using it to become a productive man, to find a wife, and to have children, right? That's how Christians see it. Obviously, people are going to disagree with me on this point, but that's how Christians see it. But I digress. Let's continue with the video. Let's see what they have talking about, and then I'll wrap it up after this clip.
Real hard here.
I know. You both care about the truth. What is your process of arriving at the truth?
I think it's really important everybody will say that they're objective and that they are nonpartisan. I think it's really important to have mental safeguards for bad opinions. So for instance, like a couple things that I'll ask myself is, for a particular debate that I'm having, like, can I argue convincingly both sides of the debate? If I can't, I won't bother having the debate, because I realize that I'm probably too partisanly dug in if I can't even represent like an opposite argument here. Another question that you might ask yourself is like, well, what would it take to convince you out of a certain position? If you feel very strongly that, Medicare for all is a good system by which to run the United States healthcare, and somebody says, well, what would it take you to convince you otherwise? If you can't even fathom, like, well, what would it take to convince me otherwise? You're probably too dug into a position. So
I agree with that. See, like, I agree. Like, I think out of the left, the liberals have the best shot of actually bringing the Democrats back to reality. The problem is, a lot of Democrats are not listening to the liberals, right? And also, modern liberals, if you bring the same group of modern liberals, millennial liberals, into the time of the baby boomers, Gen Xers, they'll be seen as progressives. So there's that problem too, that a lot of progressives are wearing the label of liberal like a skin suit, right? So there's also that problem going. But I agree with this synopsis that Destiny has pointed in. And one I'll add into the conversation as well is that, for me, truth is something that is provable, something that is demonstratable, right? And even if it can't be demonstratable, there's signals, there's clues, there's context that allows it to be probable, right? And that's where I think truth lies. It's in probability, not possibility. Anything's possible technically, but it's the probability of, hey, if I had to worry about a concern, let's say, like, here's an example of truth for me. If someone tells me, hey, Kenny, white man is the most dangerous thing in your life, I'll say no, that's a lie. Why is it a lie? Because if I look at the odds are that a black man will be more likely to kill me than a white man. Why? Look at the statistics. Look at the incidents. Black on black crime. And then look at the crime of white men attacking black men. If I look at interracial crime, only 50% of the time a white man is attacking a black man. 85% of the time a black man is attacking a white man. So if I was feeling threatened by who's going to attack me, odds are it's going to be a black man. If you look at black on black, like if you look at black victims are overrepresented compared to their population. We're 13% of the population, but we represent 36% of victims of crime. And who's overrepresented in offending crime? Black people. 13% of the population commit almost 40% of the crime. Most of those victims are black. That's how I arrive at truth. Probability, right? Empirical evidence. I have proof of it. I have historical patterns that I can look back into the past and observe the behavior and the possible results of that. And that's a pretty good clue that it can happen again in the future. It's not a guarantee, but if I'm playing by the odds, hey, it's more likely that I'll die by the hands of another black man than of a white man. That's how I arrive to that truth. You get it? So I'm very big on empirical evidence. And I think that's one thing I need to be convinced of an idea. You can't just sit here and try to rationalize an idea to me without any proof of concept. I'm not going to go for it. I think that's my little bias that I need before I can accept something as a possibility or a truth. But I digress. I've been rambling a little bit too long on that point. But I'd like to hear what the rest have to say.
I think if you go through life saying like, well, I try my best to be unbiased, rather than saying I try my best to be aware of my biases, because the latter is more realistic and the former is literally impossible unless you're a computer. So I think having like actual mental practices that you engage in to try to counter some of the biases that you have is more important than trying to pretend that you're free of all biases and then consuming all your media from one source. Yeah.
Ben?
So, I mean, I agree with a lot of that. I think that the easiest practical guide is read a bunch of different things from a bunch of different sources, and where they cross is probably the set of facts. And then everything else is extrapolated opinion from different premises.
Yep, I think that's a good way to leave off the video, right? So that's what I try to do. I try to get like both sources. Like you saw, if you see my videos whenever I review articles, on the top I have ground news, right? That tells me the bias of the newspaper, so I know what to, kind of balance it out a little bit. But I always admit openly that hey, I'm conservative. I see the world a certain view. Most of the time, I'm gonna put things that I agree with, that I personally agree with, and I use the comment section as a way of checking my bias and saying, okay, can I defend this point? This argument that I made in the video, can I defend it? Okay, is what this person's saying, is it true? Is it grounded in any information, or is this just a partisan framing that this individual is participating in my comment section? These are the kind of practices that I use to kind of check my bias and make sure that I'm speaking in reality. But I have a tendency to want proof of what I'm saying, so it's kind of hard to really see that I have a bias, and I do have a bias. I admit that, but I'm just saying, like, to be blinded by it. I'm aware that I'm biased, so I always leave that room to I could be wrong. At least I said that in my head. But I digress. Let me know your thoughts about it. I encourage you guys to watch the full video. I think it was a very good debate. They talked about a lot of topics, but I'm not going to get into that here. I just want to give you guys a little snippet of what was going on. As always, the full videos in the link in the description below if you want to watch for yourself. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I really like to hear it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.